How's it going, guys? So just as promised, I'm here to talk about Earthworm Jim, and we're going to be looking at the Activision PC port of this game, which in my opinion is the best version available. I would steer clear of the Steam version. That is not a complete version of the game. It's very similar to the SNES version. So I would stick with this one, or the Genesis version. Also, they have the Genesis Mini that's available. There's also a very good version on there, the Genesis version, which is great. So we're going to be taking a look at everything that went into the Earthworm Jim, the hype, the cartoon show. It's all going to be here in the review, and of course the game itself. So I hope you guys are all looking forward to this, because I really had a great time putting it together. It was a great nostalgia trip, doing another playthrough of Earthworm Jim. I don't know how many playthroughs I've done in this game. It's certainly been a tremendous amount. But I hope you guys all enjoy it. And without further ado, here's my retrospective of Earthworm Jim. I'll never forget my introduction to Earthworm Jim. I was looking for a new game to buy with my parents in Funkoland way back in 1994 when the store employee showed me a brand new game that was just released and told me how great it was. It was for the Sega Genesis, and the box art featured a giant worm with a body holding a gun, and was entitled Earthworm Jim. I don't know why this didn't really faze me as much as it probably should have, but I suppose when you grow up with the Ninja Turtles, these things don't really seem so odd. Man, the 90s, what a time to be alive. Upon getting it home, I was absolutely in love. The character just resonated with me, and the world in which Earthworm Jim loved was so off the wall and fun to explore. Also, it helped that the gameplay and controls were just flat out fantastic. In the months that followed, a cartoon show in which Jim was voiced by Homer Simpson's voice actor Dan Castellaneta was introduced on the ever-popular Kids WB block, along with shows like Animaniacs and Pinky and the Brain, and an action figure line were introduced, along with a 3-issue comic book miniseries published by Marvel. Earthworm Jim was becoming a successful video game franchise, creating a multimedia phenomenon. Not even Sonic or Mario had an action figure line, strangely enough. The series creator and the game's animator Doug TenNapel had successfully created one of gaming's god-tier characters, and this guy is truly amazing. He's got as much personality as the character he created. You should all subscribe to his channel and watch him draw his comics. He's working on the Earthworm Jim 2 comic as we speak. If you're not familiar with him, if you've ever watched Cat Scratch on Nickelodeon, you've seen his work. But anyway, soon a sequel to the first game was released, Earthworm Jim 2, which is probably one of the best follow-ups of all time, maybe since Sonic 2. But today we are going to be looking at the first game in the series, the one that started it all, Earthworm Jim. And before you get any crazy ideas, no, we will not be talking about the biggest disappointment of my life, the HD remake. Because I don't absolutely hate myself, and I want to talk about something I actually like, and not something that tormented and sucked the soul right out of my body with its lacklusterness. So the story headed into the adventure, which is not featured in-game, but is in the manual in this really awesome, now classic mini-comic featuring no dialogue whatsoever, sees a common earthworm getting turned into a superhero by total accident. A bounty hunter by the name of Psychro is delivering a high-tech supersuit to an evil queen. Oh, by the way, her name? Get ready for this. Queen Pulsating, bloated, festering, sweaty, pus-filled, malformed slug for a butt. She sounds hella hot, don't she? But anyway, Psycho gets caught up in a space battle with a fellow space pirate who has stolen the suit. After Psycho deals with his foe, the suit plummets to Earth, where the suit falls on top of an innocent earthworm, turning him into the hero we all know today. Jim learns the suit possesses incredible power and learns he's pretty handy with the equipped plasma blaster. Psycho comes to Earth and Jim learns a tracker is planted on the suit and that he is working for the queen who has her sister, Princess What's-Her-Name, imprisoned. Yeah, that's the princess's actual name, and a very clever shot at the overabundance of princesses in video games and media at the time. Why does she want the suit? To make her more beautiful than her sister. The suit has all this tremendous power, but she only wants it for vanity purposes. This is actually a plot point they changed in the cartoon, and when the series creator Doug TenNapel released a far more detailed origin story in his Launch the Cow graphic novel, which is worth a read if you're as interested in the character as I am. I actually reviewed it on my channel late last year, and I'll link it here as well. So, Jim has now decided that he has to meet the princess. And so, our journey into the zany world of Earthworm Jim begins. So, I think the best way to talk about this game is through the levels themselves, because they all feature so many unique elements that just talking about them generally would do this game a tremendous disservice. So I'll actually be looking at the Activision PC version of this game, which is my favorite and the most complete, with a Red Book audio soundtrack, and trust me, you want this version of the soundtrack, and we'll get to that in a bit. It's basically a far cheaper port of Earthworm Jim Special Edition for the infamous Sega CD, and therefore a more accessible way of playing this version of the game. And we start off in New Junk City, which to me has to be an obvious pun on the 90s film New Jack City. Jim has to make his way through a junkyard, where you will launch a cow into the great beyond using a refrigerator of all things. Battle rabid dogs, tangle with trash can tire hybrid monstrosities, and warp yourself using toilets. I'd say that's quite the way to start off the game. Here you will be able to test out all your techniques, the 8-way directional shooting of your plasma blaster, using your head as a whip, which can be used as both a weapon against enemies and to swing from objects like Indiana Jones. Jim can also use his head like a propeller to slow his descent and to fit into tight spots. His arsenal is kind of limited, but it's the way they are used which makes things interesting. Although the propeller head is a signature technique of Earthworm Jim, it is barely used. It only becomes mandatory once, which in retrospect feels pretty odd because it's such a creative move, you'd think the developers would have jumped at the chance to use it in any way they could. If you're playing this version of the game, you'll get to access this exclusive part where somehow Jim is transported out of his suit and you have to do some tricky platforming. You'll then come to the part where you'll be given the choice between an advanced challenge or being a wimp. Of course, I'm a big macho kind of guy, so I always choose advanced to get the extra goodies, and you will need some good timing here to do these jumps. At the end of the level, you will face off against Chuck, who is the owner of the junkyard, and he vomits fish at you as a welcome, complete with belching sound effects. pretty gross, and this is Chuck's only video game appearance in the series. He was briefly featured in the Marvel comic book, but he never appeared on the cartoon show. I suppose he pales in comparison to the other villains when you really think about it, because he's just a humanoid character with not really the most interesting design. Overall, this is a great introduction level that lets you learn just what kind of a game this is, the abstract tone, and the types of surprises that are sure to be in store on the road ahead. Andy Asteroids, named after the game's programmer Andy Astor, this is a bonus stage that you have to navigate through after almost every level. You will fly on your pocket rocket and race against Psychro in a massive asteroid field, and you must do this a total of 7 times. If you can collect 50 of these blue bubbles, you will get an extra continue, which are pretty worthless if you're playing the PC version that has a save feature. But it's super helpful if you're playing any other version that doesn't, because this is a pretty tough game, as you will soon learn. And every continue you can get your hands on is a godsend. However, this is easier said than done. As you progress through the game, the asteroids grow in supply, and it can be pretty tricky to avoid them and get the needed amount of bubbles. You can also use these power-ups to go insanely fast, which will give you a better chance at winning the race, but you may miss out on bubbles and might smash into an asteroid. The weird part here is, why are you racing Psychro? Isn't he supposed to be getting the suit back? Why doesn't he just use his spaceship we see in the manual's comic? It would seem like a better strategy than flying with no weapons. He can push you into the asteroids, but that's about it. Well, if you lose the race, you will have to face off against Psychro, who is pretty simple really. You just whip him and shoot him, and the further into game you get, he will take more hits. But he's really not that much of a challenge, and considering he's one of the main characters, in retrospect, this is kind of a letdown. What the heck? Probably the most memorable level from the game. Jim is on planet Heck, which is literally a living hell. I mean, look at it. Evil the Cat can be seen dancing to the level's music in the background, which is an amazing rendition of A Night on Bald Mountain, a classical piece that has been reworked by master composer Tommy Tallarico. And this is where we have to talk about this incredible soundtrack. This soundtrack is one of my favorites of all time. It's in my top 3 along with the Sonic and Donkey Kong Country series. It's simply stunning. This track is great, with the elevator music interlude accompanied by the screams of people being tortured. Gotta love those pre-ESRB days. I didn't find this disturbing at all as a kid. Funny, because in retrospect, like a lot of things, I realized that this should have stunned me and frightened me at such a young, impressionable age. Somehow, this fiery planet of, well, hellfire or heckfire, whatever, manages to be the home of a fire-spitting snowman. These shadowy demons will relentlessly gnaw on you until you can kill them, and the best enemy here has got to be these lawyers. Oh, what a statement here. Lawyers burning in hell. The developers really let you know what they thought of this profession. Evil the Cat will use a bomb and cause these stalagmites to fall if you get too close to this power-up. At the end, you will fight Evil the Cat, who has somehow stolen your suit off screen. You'll eventually get it back and have to prove you're fast with aiming your blaster, as Evil the Cat will pop out from multiple directions. After shooting him 9 times, because after all, a cat only has 9 lives, yuck yuck yuck, you will rocket out of heck It's interesting to note that the creator, Doug TenNapel, actually created and wrote a comic book about the character before the Earthworm Jim concept was even conceived. Big Broody. This level is exclusive to the PC Sega CD version, and it's really a great one that chances are fans who grew up with this on the SNES or Sega Genesis never got to see this puzzle-oriented level, an element that the rest of the game never got to see. The level involves keeping one step ahead of this reoccurring blind monster Big Broody, who is named after Nick Broody, the game's art director, and who can one-hit kill Jim by gobbling him up whole. The trick is to bait Broody into helping you progress through the level by goading him by having him sniff you to pick up your scent so he'll chase after you, and then using his weight to launch off of this seesaw or have him smash through this wall of junk. This place is just weird. You're basically in the middle of nowhere on wooden platforms that are haphazardly put together, and these insects are everywhere. It's also accompanied by one of the creepiest pieces of music you might ever hear. I really like this level and feel that fans of the game are really missing out on a pretty fun and inventive level by not playing this version of the game. Down the Tubes and Tube Race. Down the Tubes is harmless enough. You're going through this underwater city made up of all tubes, Atlantis style I suppose you can say, and it's patrolled by these huge muscular cat guards, and these little cats here that can slam you around like you're nothing. The animation of these cats slamming Jim around and grabbing him by the neck and punching him in the face, sending him flying, is extremely well animated and really speaks volumes about the team that worked on this game and just how talented of animators and programmers we were working with here. I mean, this just looks phenomenal for the time. You really didn't see anything like this during this era. This place may be full of guards, but you'll make your way through these tubes with the help of a giant hamster who just so happens to have an appetite for those of the feline persuasion. You'll also be introduced to these submarine pods, which you have to use to navigate to reach the next part of the tubes. Get very familiar with this because the level has another section known as Tube Race, which is mainly made up of a more challenging submarine ride, a far more challenging one that is a seemingly brutal race against time. And if you're not familiar with this well-hidden secret air supplier located along the route, I believe it's pretty much impossible to finish. Plus, you have to make it to the secret area while keeping your pod intact, which requires some precise navigating. I never liked this part, and I understand it's just part of the variety the level and the game offers as a whole, but back in 1994, when there was no internet, this secret wasn't exactly obvious, because if you touch any other part of the walls headed here or after the area, except the exact one, you're taking damage. Yes, it may be clever secret hiding, and that would have been fine if this was some optional goodie, but as far as I know, it's absolutely mandatory that this is just unfair in my eyes. After all this harrowing subbing, you're face to face with the evil Bob the Goldfish, and Jim will just automatically smash his fishbowl, knocking him to the floor where he flops around helplessly. I guess the developers felt that you suffered enough during the tube race and decided to take it easy on you with this boss fight in quotation marks. It's not a problem. This was always a fun level for me. You go 3 rounds in this bungee jumping scenario, which is actually a boss battle, and you have to break Major Mucus's bungee cord, which, if you haven't noticed, is just one big long booger. Yes, Major Mucus is a villainous booger, and you have to bash him into the wall before he does the same to you, all while avoiding this alligator with an eyeball in his mouth. This always reminded me of the trash compactor monster from Star Wars, the Dianoga, with that eyeball just popping out of the water. I love the physics of the level. As you reach the bottom of the chasm, you get pulled right back up and the process continues, and the attention to detail in the background as it scrolls with you as you ascend and descend. The animation, once again, is proven to be simply amazing. Level 5. This is the lab of the mad scientist Professor Monkey for a Head, who is the man who actually created Jim's super suit, and he also accidentally grafted a monkey to his head. The level is full of a variety of traps and gimmicks such as electrified spears, moving conveyor belts, and this cage section can be pretty tricky if you're not quick enough with your blaster. Also, you'll get pulled out of your suit by these whirling fans, and you'll have to make your way back inside. Interesting enough, there's a mini level hidden inside this level entitled Who Turned Out the Lights, which is a pitch black area where only Jim's eyes are visible, and you'll see these disembodied eyes creeping around in the dark as you try to find the exit. This area is split into 5 parts, and at the end you will be confronted by a massive pair of eyes. This always freaked me out as a kid, because after seeing all these little pairs of eyes, you then suddenly see this giant pair, and whatever this thing is, it starts chasing you. All you have to do is find a spot to jump over it and escape the room. Now, as you progress towards the end of the level, you will finally meet up with the professor himself, and wow, his character sprite is so small. Why is he so tiny? This always bothered me because I know based on the manual and the cartoon, this is not how the character was envisioned. He's supposed to look mostly like a regular human, despite the monkey attached to his head and all. Here he looks like he shot himself with a shrink ray by accident. The disappointing thing about this character's appearance is that you only fight him briefly, and it's not even a boss fight. He just shows up a few times to throw some lab equipment at you and then runs off. All this technology and he doesn't even fight you in a giant mech or something like that? If you watch a cartoon, he would always do that. It's kind of disappointing because he's a pretty major character in the cartoon and a great character. I mean, he has a freaking monkey attached to his head. Well, instead, you square off against this chicken inside a mech. One of the professor's crazy experiments, and after damaging it a bit, you will face off against it, plummeting down this endless shaft. And this is just an awesome visual as we get more of that background scrolling, and Jim's upside down while firing his blaster. It's just so stylish as hell. I absolutely love this ending to the level. For Pete's sake, an escort mission before they became all too commonplace in video games. But this is a pretty fun and challenging one, as you must help a poor innocent pup make his way home. Aw, look at him skip. Oh, look what a good little puppy wuppy. How cute is that? This is Peter Puppy, and when he gets hurt by an enemy or falls into a gap, he becomes the massive grotesque dog beast that will maul you into mincemeat. This character would go on to be featured in all of the games, the cartoon, and all the comics that were released. In the cartoon, he would actually be Jim's faithful sidekick and actual roommate for every episode. This level really tests your reflexes, and you have to be pretty handy with your whip by this point to get to Peter in time to assist him. This level will keep you really focused and busy, and if you are up for a challenge like me, You can score some extra lives by taking the advanced route and extend Peter's trip, or you can wimp out and just take Peter immediately home. So wait. Peter actually has 2 houses, and one's located in an even harder area to reach? What the hell is wrong with this guy? Intestinal Distress. Sadly, if you're playing the SNES or Steam version of this game, you will not experience this rather unsettling, grotesque level. There are balls of bile rolling around and tubes that look like they're part of a stomach lining. Yes, this level is supposed to represent the intestines, and the boss is an actual alien organ by the name of Dr. Duodenum, named after the first part of the small intestine. Ooh boy, anybody hungry? Yeah, I know, pretty freaking gross to say the least. It's actually a rather short level, and it's pretty unique because it's all vertical. You have to climb your way to the top of the level instead of going all the way to the right. Weirdly enough, it's not as hard compared to the earlier levels. Here you will actually fight Dr. Duodenum himself, but as long as you stay out of range, he will go down fairly quickly. Buttville. This is the Queen's lair, and you will start off things by finally having a mandatory use for your head propeller technique. As I mentioned earlier, it would have been cool to have more uses for this move throughout the game, but it's finally put to good use here, as you must navigate down this thorny chasm. It feels so satisfying to do this without taking a hit. Basically, just keep bashing that jump button and steering with careful taps of the D-pad. When you get to the bottom, you will enter the Queen's lair, and you better have your jumping and whipping skills down, because there's this one-shot hook where if you miss, you will just fall to your doom, and these insects that will one-hit kill you by biting you in half. It can be pretty challenging to make it to the Queen, but if you take your time, you can make it. You'll even get to see the cow you launched back in the beginning of the game in the background. Suddenly, you will find yourself standing on the Queen's butt, her slug butt to be exact, and you will have to face off against her tail first. Whip, don't shoot it, or she'll spray a bunch of pus at you. Ew. Then you'll face off against her and get to hear the simply delightful shrieks that she makes as you fire at her.
That's just about enough of that.
Okay, I think that's quite enough. She seriously takes a ton of shots to kill, but in the SNES, Genesis, and Steam version, you can actually just kill her in one hit with a head whip, which is just odd to me. I mean, it's difficult to get to her, especially if you're playing this with no save feature and you're relying on continues to not be sent back to the beginning of the game. So it's understandable why they do this for those versions, but thankfully this is removed for this version, since you can save after all. If you can make it to her with no saving, you've proven enough. The Queen's body just then implodes into a pile of bones and guts, and this is a very satisfying death for a final boss. You really feel like you just completely destroyed her, and a very well animated death sequence at that. Well, now it's time to meet the princess, and we get some classic droopy cartoon wolf style action in the classic Tex Avery style. Ooh, looks like Jim's gonna get lucky, and a grand adventure's end should be met with a grand reward after all, and whoops! Well, looks like the same cow from the beginning just came in for a crash landing. I love how Jim doesn't even help her. I mean, she's not dead, but he's just like, well, that's that, and heads off. And she just stays squashed for the entire length of the credits, and Jim just sneaks in to steal the crown at the end, probably gonna pawn that off somewhere in the galaxy. This is the perfect ending for a game like Earthworm Jim. Although you beat the queen, what did Jim really get out of this? He didn't get the girl, the princess is not exactly free as now she's trapped underneath the tremendous dead weight of a cow, and now she's sinking to the bottom of this gross looking lake. What a happy ending. That is truly a masterpiece right there. I mean, that game right there, it left such an impression on me through my childhood into my adulthood. It really expanded my creativity, like what a video game character could be, what a character in any form of media could be. Comic books, TV, cartoons, it didn't matter. Such a great design. I look at that character and I look at Doug TenNapel as just such a tremendous artist. I mean, when that guy announced the graphic novel and the one that's going to be coming out late this year, I mean, I was absolutely ecstatic. I mean, he's just a tremendous artist, and the video game speaks for itself. You just had a team of amazing people working on it, and there is going to be a sequel. Yes, Earthworm Jim coming out for the Intellivision Amico, and I know a lot of people were very disappointed to hear that it was being announced for the Amico, that it was going to be on that system. Tommy Tallarico owns Intellivision, who also composed the great, fantastic soundtrack for both Earthworm Jim 1 and 2. So it's kind of poetic in a way that he now owns the company that's going to be releasing the next Earthworm Jim game. And I mean, it's been so many years. I mean, we have been waiting since 1999 for a completely new Earthworm Jim game. And no, I do not count the HD port. I don't even want to talk about it. One of these days we'll get to it, I promise. I'll do another playthrough, I'll record footage for it, but I just didn't have a very pleasant time with it the last time I played it way back in 2010. So I'd rather not, but I will do it here for this channel, and I think I'll have fun making the review and talking about it with you guys here on this channel. And as I said, I'm really looking for that Amico game, and I'm seriously considering buying the console just for playing that game and some of the other games. But let's be honest, for Earthworm Jim, I'm that big of a fan. So he's right up there with Sonic the Hedgehog as far as my favorite video game characters of all time. So there you go, guys. So for the next review that I do here on this channel, or retrospective, I think I'm definitely going to want to jump back into Sonic. Also, I also want to do a Force Unleashed video, but I think maybe I might be looking at a game for the Switch that I've been meaning to review, but I just haven't gotten around to it. And that's going to be Luigi's Mansion 3, which was a tremendous game, one of the best looking games of all time. So I think that might be next on my list of games to look at here on this channel. So I hope you guys all look forward to that and all the future reviews and retrospectives I have planned here on this channel. Thanks for watching, guys. I want to thank all my patrons for your continued support, and everybody for all your support, all the subs and everyone who views these videos and comments and everything. I just really appreciate it. I love the people who are supporting the new direction for this channel, because I'm really enjoying doing it. I'm really just in the mood for these videos, and I really think we're making a lot of great progress on here. And for those people that, don't like the way that this channel is going, I understand, completely do. But anyway, guys, I'll see you next time.